Hi, I'm Ryan,
Hi, I'm Kayla, and
and
you're
you're
watching
watching
5 Minutes
5 Minutes
with
with
Ryan and
Ryan and
Kayla.
Kayla.
And Matt.
Hey guys, welcome back to 5 Minutes with Ryan and Kayla. In our first video, we went over high availability and disaster recovery, and today we're going to talk about LINSTOR, and more specifically, our LINSTOR software paired up with Kubernetes. So yeah, let's jump into it.
Yeah, so with native integration to Kubernetes, LINSTOR makes building, running, and controlling block storage pretty simple. So LINSTOR is open source software designed to manage block storage devices for large Linux server clusters. It's used to provide persistent block storage for Kubernetes environments. The diagram that you're seeing on the screen shows how LINSTOR is very tech agnostic when it comes to the LINSTOR setup. It was built to be flexible to your specific setup and needs.
LINSTOR is composed of at least one controller and multiple satellites that can connect over a secure connection to Kubernetes. And this interaction can be done via the API or Application Programming Interface or CLI, Command Line Interface.
There are multiple benefits of LINSTOR with Kubernetes, but just to highlight a couple, for persistent container storage highlighted on the slide, with this LINSTOR CSI driver, the storage volumes provided and managed by LINSTOR integrate seamlessly with Kubernetes and the workloads running there. It allows the user to select the replication count per storage class. For block storage replication, so the highest performing data replication is actually done at the block level within the Linux kernel. So that's a plus for our solution. And then just to highlight separation of data and control plane as well. So LINSTOR is only necessary for control operations, such as creating volumes or taking snapshots. So after a volume is set up and handed over to the workload, the IO operations on it are independent of the LINSTOR controller and LINSTOR satellite components. Those could be restarted or upgraded without affecting IO on existing volumes. So that was just to highlight a couple of things on this slide. And really that concludes the PowerPoint presentation today, but if you have any questions or wanted to connect with engineering, you could email us at sales@linbit.com.
We really want to talk to you.
So you may have seen a little special guest on our intro to 5 Minutes with Ryan and Kayla. But for those of you who don't know him, Matt is our solutions architect on the US side here. Ian, it's our pleasure to have him here today.
So Matt, as you saw, today we focused on LINBIT SDS, which combines our LINSTOR and DRBD software solutions. In a very general sense, who would you say could benefit from this type of solution?
I'd say anybody that needs persistent storage for their private cloud or public cloud, but specifically private cloud, because when you stand up a lot of these cloud platforms, you don't have a storage provisioner given to you by default. You have to install one and configure one. And LINSTOR ticks a lot of the boxes that most organizations have. It synchronously replicates for HA, has snapshot support for DR. Also, public clouds, sometimes there's feature sets that maybe aren't addressed by the provisioners that come with their solution. Like, you get an EKS cluster in Amazon, for example, you'll have an EBS storage class that provisions EBS volumes for you when you ask for them. But those are going to be, locked to an availability zone. So you might want to replicate that to another availability zone so your applications can move freely without having their performance affected by using higher level application or application-based replication or file system-based replication. Because LINSTOR, as I mentioned, provisions block storage. This is very low level, and the synchronous replication between nodes works really well on the networks that these cloud providers have between their data centers and zones and availability zones.
I have another one for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that the Jenkins project has been a pretty big focus for you in recent months. How did that come about?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was probably the beginning of summer, maybe of 2021. Jenkins doesn't have any kind of built-in replication tools available to it natively. It relies on the storage backend for its replication. And I guess a lot of people were attempting to put the storage on top of EFS in AWS, which is a shared file system, which, as I mentioned in my previous answer, actually, it does not perform as well as your single access type block storage because there's locking overhead, there's just application overhead that to ensure we're not corrupting our data. The synchronous replication that DRBD does over the fiber networks between Amazon's AZs has very minimal impact on performance. I wrote a blog post, I think, over the summer that kind of highlights the impact that you should expect, and it was, less than 10% in all cases, I believe. It was people looking to squeak out more performance without kind of giving up HA or DR capabilities. So
awesome. Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, on where we started, where did we end up with that project?
Well, we're still cranking along. We're waiting for the S3 support in LINSTOR to be more native in the restoration options. Currently, I think we just had a release today, which is going to put a timestamp on this video, I suppose, but where we solidified the S3 bucket configuration in a Kubernetes native way, as opposed to having to drop into the LINSTOR CLI and set it up using LINSTOR commands, which to most Kubernetes users they're not familiar. And the next step is to make that restoration process more Kubernetes native so that you don't have to be familiar with LINSTOR to restore your snapshots. As of right now, that's where it sits. I do need to update that doc, so thanks for reminding me.
And then Matt, one last question here. What is one food that you could not live without?
It has to be pizza, I think. I mean,
every Wednesday, right?
Every Wednesday. I haven't missed a pizza Wednesday in many years. Yeah.
Listening to 5 minutes with Ryan and Kaila. You said
and
listening,
Matt?
I said watching.
I got the vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sound okay.
Should we do one more?
And Matt. Oh.
Sorry, what are we saying? Fire intro, guys. I said watching and you said listening.
You guys switched. Yeah.
Watching.
It felt wrong coming out of my mouth.
Leave meeting. Can we start over?